Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I just got back from a trip to Yellowstone, so this footage you're looking at is from my trip. I have a lot of B-roll footage. I have a lot of content about Yellowstone. You know, Yellowstone's a really interesting place, a lot of deep lore. So the next couple videos, we'll see how they do. We might make maybe a 2 or 3 video series here about Yellowstone, depending on how these videos do and the time it takes for me to talk. The first thing I wanted to talk about Yellowstone is all the times you go out into the woods. There's kind of like 2 different experiences or more, depending on what you want to do. So I went to Yellowstone with my wife and my kids, some of which are pretty young. So that is probably not the time you want to go off trail or to remote areas looking for a Sasquatch or other cryptid experience. That being said, I'm always on the lookout to gather information for future trips and just to have more knowledge and information about the history and the terrain for future investigations. So one of the first places I always like to look, if you've followed me for a long time, you probably already know that part of this channel I'm a prolific reader. So the first place I always like to stop is at gift stores, bookstores, ranger stations, visitor centers, and I like to check out their book selection. And when I was in Yellowstone, I picked up 2 books. One was about ghost stories, and the other one was just about interesting lore about the area. And both those books were not super great. I might do another deep dive into ghost stories for a future video, but both stories featured a guy named Truman C. Everett, who was one of the first party members that went and explored Yellowstone in 1870. And so Truman got separated from his party, and it was a famous party too. Gosh, I forget the name of them now, but they were kind of the first party that did a survey of the full park. And so Truman got lost, and the reason why it was in both stories, he had a weird experience. He ended up being lost for 37 days, and he traveled 50 miles by himself. And so when he got lost, his pack horse got away, and all his supplies were lost with that pack horse, including his guns and his food and his other rations. And so at about day 5, Truman started having these weird encounters, and he claims that it was a mountain lion, which I did look up mountain lion noises, and they do make horrific noises. But basically, he was woken up by some weird screaming, and he said it was very human-like, and it scared him enough to climb into a tree. And while in this tree, he could hear whatever it was circling the bottom of the tree, but he couldn't really see what was making the noise. And so, you know, that was kind of scared for him. It really scared him, and he started trying to make noise to scare away the mountain lion, which I will say that would probably typically work. And again, he didn't see what was actually down there, but he said it was yelling and screaming, and he said it was like a person, and that is a direct quote. He said it was a shrill scream, but you know, making a lot of noise and wiggling the tree did not work to scare this thing away. And so finally he just went quiet, and he hid in that tree for several hours until daybreak started to happen. And then the thing crashed through the woods and took off. And like I said, he says this is a mountain lion, but mountain lions are pretty good at climbing, so I find it weird that the mountain lion wouldn't have climbed and attacked him if that was its intention. And the way he described the screaming as being very human-like, although the mountain lion screams are very strange, I would not call them human-like. And so he also goes on to describe a couple days later, he said, and this is a quote, "At one moment it seemed as if in the density of a thicket I could see the blazing eyes as of a formidable forest monster fixed upon me, preparatory to a deadly leap." So again, this was before people kind of knew what Sasquatch was. So he claims to have seen this forest monster. It was only about day 5 or so into this trip, so he was not fully like hallucinating yet, but definitely a strange description of that Bigfoot. So he went on to survive. He did end up stiffing his 2 guys that rescued him, which I found that not very good. He offered a reward, and then when the men found him, he ended up not paying them, which was shady. So in that area, it is well known that was a huge area for a lot of tribes. There was 5 main tribes that kind of cohabitated that area and used it for a hunting ground in and around Yellowstone. So they all have history of a Sasquatch. And the first tribe was the Shoshone, and they had a hairy man. They described it as a powerful being who lives in the mountains and forests, sometimes considered dangerous, sometimes a guardian spirit. And then we have the Crow. They describe giant hairy beings living in the mountains, rarely seen and extremely powerful. We have the Blackfeet. They describe a hairy giant who roams the wilderness, described as solitary, elusive being. We have the Nez Perce, or also known as the Ninipoo. They have a wild man, a hairy wild man legend, and they're beings that lived in the forest. And then the Flathead, hairy giants believed to be real beings, sometimes with mystical powers, respect or fear, guardianship of the land, not always physical. So, the Native Americans knew the difference between a real animal, a physical being, and a spiritual being. And all 5 of those tribes in the area all had hairy giant man legends. And several of them described them as physical beings, not just supernatural beings, which I found that really interesting. There is one more really important historical account I came across, and this is from 1811, or there's a couple historical accounts. So in 1811, David Thompson found 1 footprint in the snow, 14 inches, spaced 5 feet apart in the snow. So, these are credible historical accounts. And then Yellowstone Rangers in the late 1800s, they found giant footprints and reported an 8-man seen near Shoshone Lake in remote Lamar Valley. And then there's visitor letters and multiple ranger logs that were kind of unofficial. And then the bombing incident. This was from Teddy Roosevelt's diary when he came and set up the national park. So he met a trapper named Bauman, who was a German guy. And basically they were up in that area trapping. And they came back from trapping one day and found their camp tore up and all their items spread all over, but no food items were missing, which they found really strange. And then upon looking around, they found a giant, which could only be described as Sasquatch footprints around their camp, huge humanoid footprints. And they were kind of freaked out, but they continued. There's ample game in that region. So Bauman and his partner, who is not named, camped another night. During the night, they heard things running around, and they claimed to have known that they were bipedal, which is up on 2 legs. The next day, they saw a bunch of footprints around camp. And then being brave trappers, they split up again to continue trapping. And at that time, when they're separated, Bauman came back to camp and he found his unnamed partner dead at the camp, slouched over. His neck was broken and his throat was ripped out. So at that point, he looked around the camp and he found more big footprints and was pretty freaked out. And he hightailed it out of there. He left all his gear, all his furs, only brought his gun, couldn't wait to leave. This is an important account because, again, it was Teddy Roosevelt wrote this account. This is a true account from Teddy Roosevelt. When Teddy met with that hunter, he knew that that hunter had no reason to lie, and he said it must have been some grisly and half-human creature, whether natural or supernatural, I cannot say. So Teddy Roosevelt absolutely believed him, and he said that there was no reason for this hunter to lie to him. And really, this hunter was kind of ashamed that he had this encounter. So we're kind of running late on time here. This video is already running long. If you like this video, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. I have a part 2 about a book I found online while doing research about Rusty Williams, and he compiled a bunch of firsthand Bigfoot encounters that I'd like to summarize with you guys for the next time. So again, like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. If you're watching this on Rumble, please make sure you subscribe so I can get that channel going, and I'll see you guys next time.